Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat, oh,
Pat. Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
Well, at least for now.
Well, hopefully I'm here to stay.
I hear you're falling apart. Is that what's going
I
on with you?
mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm home. I was discharged from the hospital this weekend. Was in there for about 9 days. So, and the surgery went well. They cracked open my chest. They replaced one of my valves. They repaired another one and put me back together again, and everything went well there. The problem is that when they rebooted my system, my kidneys did not come back online.
Yeah.
So currently I am doing outpatient dialysis 3 days a week. Now, I guess this was a side effect that they warned me about. I'm certainly not claiming that like the doctor didn't mention it.
Right.
But in retrospect, I've learned that this happens in about 30% of the cases where people have like open heart surgery or like prolonged operations utilizing a heart lung machine. And like I didn't expect this shit to happen, but I guess it does like a third of the fucking time. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. But
What does
and
that
that's
mean?
a
Do you
whole
need a kidney, or they expect your kidneys to start working, or we're still kind of
they
waiting?
yeah, they think they'll start working because they're in pretty good shape.
Okay.
And there was no damage before with them. They were operational and everything. Uh it's just they don't come on because of the trauma of
Oh,
like
okay.
everything starting and stopping. So I gotta do dialysis, which is not a ton of fun.
Well,
And it takes the fucking wind out of me. And I do that 3 days a week for 4 hours a day.
wow.
Which right now is no big deal because I'm already in recovery anyway. So it's like all I'd be doing is sitting around the house. And now I have an excuse to go out and sit at a dialysis clinic for fucking 4 hours. But yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens when I'm supposed to go back to work if I'm still doing this dialysis shit. Most the doctors are all super optimistic that it's not going to take me that long. Things are already progressing well, and they expect me to be fully operational in no time. And as you can hear, my dogs are running around and happy to have me home.
Oh.
So yeah,
Well,
so that's
good.
it. But thanks to everyone for the show that wrote and reached out. Actually, I had more people that I know through the show reach out to me than, well, I shouldn't really say that. About, let me put it like this, about half, which is still an insane number for me. A lot of people from the show wished me well and checked in on me. And that meant the world to me. So thank you guys and girls, all of you. So,
Well, we just all want to make sure that you're okay. I'll tell you, I don't like. Here's what I know for sure is that this is definitely giving you job security on the show because I don't like having to do it by myself. I mean,
oh, but you did such a good fucking job. I know we just
well,
got done talking about this, but we'll do it again for the recording sake. That episode was fucking gangbusters. You really did a good job, and that was a great interviewee. That was a great story.
yeah, share
Technically,
whatever you want on it. You haven't gotten to share your piece about it yet, live like this. So,
oh, I think that's a story best told amongst women.
sure.
I don't think you need a male perspective on that one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but that's such a fucked up story, and it was great. I thought it was great for the show. I thought it was a high watermark for the show, and I don't like. Like I said, man, I don't see too many other podcasts pulling fucking that level of journalism. So kudos to you. I'm very proud of you. You did me well in my absence.
I know you didn't even have to get cucked for me to do it too. So,
Uh,
Well, either way, I mean, I'm glad to have you back. Like I said, can I do the show by myself? Yes, but is it as much fun? Hell no, absolutely not. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
you need to hurry up and completely recover so that way I can stop worrying about the fact that you might die. So, because I don't enjoy being faced with your mortality. It's not very comfortable for
Right.
me. So, but anyway, well, good. I'm glad you're doing good. That's good. No, I think everybody's really super excited about you being here. We did kind of plan for you to be out a little bit longer, but knowing the workhorse that you are, you wanted to come back and do this. So, the episode that you guys are going to hear shortly now, we are recording this at our usual recording time, but the meat of the episode was recorded on a different day, pre-surgery. So if Pat sounds not as high or exhausted, that's why.
Right.
So.
Although not necessarily so. Not necessarily. But you may notice a difference in audio quality. We'll just leave it at that.
Sure. Right. Exactly. So we'll give you guys a little warning when that switches over. But anyway, should we just get right into it? You want to talk some news?
Sure. What you got?
Oh, well, I got, first I want to plug something. I was recently on the Bigfoot Society podcast. We talk about our buddies over there a lot. Jeremiah Byron does that. You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts, or you can get onto YouTube where we were actually on video, discussing all kinds of fun things. We talked about Mothman. We did talk about Dogman and the LBL, which is what we're talking about on today's episode as well. But, a little bit different vibe there. Go check it out if you haven't checked out the Bigfoot Society podcast and you obviously listen to this show. Now's a really good time to go over there and decide if that's something that, you'd like to engage in further. He's always got a lot of really interesting people. And then, of course, he just started a new series where he's sharing more personal stories and encounters and things like that. So, anyway, there's my shameless plug. But also, I watched, which I mentioned last week. I'll tell you guys, I did watch the Small Town Monsters on the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman. Pat, have you watched this yet?
No, I'm boycotting it because they didn't ask me to be in it. I'm real petty. People need to people need to stop shooting shit in Chicago without writing me a letter of introduction before they come into my fucking city.
Fair enough.
I'm serious. I'm fucking serious.
You are the king. If anybody shoots anything ever in Chicago, just know if you don't ask Pat O to be in it, he's going to boycott you. Yeah.
Ask those motherfuckers on Chicago Fire. They found out the hard way.
So Pat's not gonna watch it. That's okay. No, it was good. I mean, for what it is. A lot of people ask me, and even when I went on Jeremiah's show, he kind of asked, what about my documentary is gonna set me apart from the Small Town Monsters people? And here's the thing, you guys, is that I don't compare like that. There's no reason for me to do that. My thing's gonna be my thing, and so but I'm human, right? We all have ego. So to act like I watched this thing and didn't go, oh, well, I'm critiquing this, I'm definitely not going to do that. Of course I did that. But overall, I think it is good. I think it's a good viewing experience. And I think you guys should definitely watch it. I think that it stays pretty neutral. It's not clickbaity. You know what I mean? It doesn't have a lot of, oh, we discovered this. They're pretty honest about what they find. And I think that that's really important in these types of documentaries. And overall, I enjoy Small Town Monsters and what they create. And I'm going to continue to support them in the future. And that's not just because I'm friends with them. But one thing that I noticed during the episode was that Heather Moser and Seth Breedlove were both saying the word Fortean differently. And we do this a lot. I say Fortean, and Pat, you say
Fortean.
Fortean. Some people say Fortean. And so, I mean, and I asked it on social media, which one's correct? What's right? Is it, Fortean? Is it Fortean? What is it? And then it was so weird because then Heather messaged me because I posed this question on social media, didn't say why. And she messaged me and she said, well, how do you say it? And I told her, And, I told her it's really funny that you messaged me because it was you and Seth who kind of got me thinking about how different everybody says it. And, I'll say both Heather and Seth, I mean, they're good investigators. You don't sound ridiculous the way that you say it. It's just that it's kind of a certain vernacular, and that's fine. But I was also thinking about, Appalachia. Pat, do you say
Appalachia.
Appalachia? You say Appalachia.
Appalachia. Yeah.
Now, see, the people in Appalachia will tell you that it's Appalachian. We know that because our buddy Danner, which actually Aaron told us on the show the saying, if you say Appalachia, I'll throw an Appalachia, and that's how you remember how it's said. And so it's Appalachian and Appalachia. But that sounds ridiculous. I have people tell me all the time, like, that sounds really stupid. That's not how you say it. Like, I don't know. That's how they say it. I don't know. But words are stupid, and I just wanted to share that little bit of little slice of life, I guess, the things that keep me up at night.
Well, I think 14 is it's got like wasn't it first written about like in English? It was like an English magazine or something.
Well,
I think that has the component of it too, is that it's not necessarily an American word. So there's the translation from the way that it was maybe initially supposed to be said and pronounced in Britain or whatever, and then the way that we just kind of bastardized it, you know.
well, the word Fortean comes straight from it comes straight from Charles Fort. And he went around
Oh,
studying all this anomalous phenomena, right? So his name is Fort, Forte. So because it's Fort and not 40, you know what I mean? To me, it sounds like it should be Fortean, and not Fortean because it's not 40. You know what I mean?
gotcha.
So to me, that makes sense, and so that's why I say it the way that I say it.
No,
Um,
I think you're right. Yeah, you sound like you know what you're talking about.
I mean, but I don't know if I wouldn't. I'm not going to say that I'm right. Potato, potato. But then again, I don't really know anybody that says potato. So I don't know. I've never heard that out in the fucking wild. Have you? Because
Right.
I have not. So I mean, again, words are weird, and do whatever the fuck you want as long as the people understand what the fuck you're saying. I remember the first time I had read the word aspartame, and I had embarrassed myself because I did not know how to say aspartame. And I knew that these chemical words were really stupid and didn't really make a lot of sense. And they were pronounced not the way that they are spelled out, right? So I don't remember how I was saying it. I don't remember how I was saying it, but I pronounced it really
Aspartame.
aspartame, yeah. I was saying it. I ended up anyway. I was saying it in a really weird way, and I had probably gone about 3 years of my life pronouncing it that way. And one day, a friend was like, that's not how you say it. And I'm very grateful that she pointed it out to me, because I didn't want to continue to look like a moron. So, I mean, I was
Someone
young,
once
but
told
still.
someone once told me never make fun of someone for mispronouncing something. All it shows is that they learn the word by reading it, and you should never talk shit to somebody who reads.
Ooh, I like that. That's
You know
actually
what I mean? I
that's
think
true.
you paraphrase that a little bit. You could probably sharpen the edge on that one a little bit, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, let me tell you, back when I first saw aspartame, it wasn't you couldn't just. I mean, I guess you could just Google stuff and be like, how do you say that? But not really. It wasn't really something that you do. I Google words all the time. I do it a lot for this show. As a matter of fact, there is. I'm gonna move on to actual news in a second. There's a word that I had to Google. And what I'll do is I will break it phonetically, break it down correctly. That makes sense to me so that I can pronounce it correctly. So what? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You're right. You shouldn't make fun of anybody that reads or that's trying to learn in general.
Right. Right.
That's just ridiculous. There's way more in the world to worry about. But hey, that's just me. So I don't know. But anyway, so you want to hear some actual news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Super interesting. I only have this one item, but let me tell you, it's really cool. So there's a guy. He is a professor of pathology at Stanford. His name is Gary Nolan. He is mostly known for genome sequencing. Here's another word that I did not pronounce. I did not look up how to pronounce it. I think I'm going to say it right. He's known for genome sequencing the Atacama alien. Do you know about the Atacama alien?
No.
It was a little. It's like a little. There was like a whole documentary made about it. It was kind of a big deal. There was like this mummified, like 6 inch long. I think it was like 6 inches, or maybe it was 11. I can't remember. Little humanoid looking thing, but it looked fucking weird, and it didn't look like a person, and also it was very, very tiny. But it wasn't just like a baby because it wasn't formed like a baby would be formed. Just really weird skeletal thing. And a lot of people are freaking out saying, "Oh, this is some, alien species. We know it is. We know it is." Well, Gary Nolan said, "Well, you know what? Fuck it. Let me sit down with it. Let me figure it out." And he sat down. He genome sequenced it, and come to find out, it wasn't an alien at all. It was human. It did seem to be. I think they did deduce it was a premature human with a lot of mutations. Not that it died as that young of a baby, not like in the womb, like it was born prematurely and died instantly, but it did live for a little bit and then died. But that had kind of been a big thing. Like I said, I remember they did this whole documentary on it. I think it was like in 2013. I don't remember. Anyway, he's back in the news because Mr. Nolan says, I'm sorry, Dr. Nolan says that after this alien business went viral, kind of blew up, and everybody was talking about it, he was actually contacted by the CIA to do studies on MRI scans on people within the military who have had encounters with, well, what we call now UAPs and alien life. And again, strictly military personnel. And so he has been doing this. And, what they did find was something really interesting in these MRIs. When you look at a brain MRI, if you see white patches, okay, these are typically indicators that there is some type of damage at place. It's usually scarring. And it's not good. It's not a good thing. Well, they were finding scarring on these things, on these scans. Well, they had thought was scarring, right? I mean, almost right in the center of the brain, on a portion of the brain called the basal ganglia. But the basal ganglia is mostly responsible for voluntary movements. And a lot of people that have significant scarring, like these people have, usually end up with things like Parkinson's or, what Dr. Nolan was saying was that these people should realistically be dead with the amount that they were seeing. After further researching it a little bit, what they had found out was that this is not scarring that they were seeing on the MRIs. What they were seeing was actually an overconnection of the neurons within the basal ganglia. And that is also extremely significant. And all of them, and I think it was out of 100 MRIs that they looked at, all of them had it. Now, again, these people that he's looking at are military personnel who have had some type of close contact with what we believe to be alien life, more specifically UAPs, things like that. So what does this mean exactly? Why is this crazy and exciting? Why is it newsworthy? Well, the basal ganglia also controls intuition. And Dr. Nolan had access to some old MRI scans from some of the people, not all of them. So, of course, the first course of action was to figure out, well, did they have these overconnected neurons before or after the incident? What they were finding is, in the ones that they had from pre-incident, they did already have those overconnected neurons in the basal ganglia. So, is that significant at all? is that why they were able to have these significant experiences with these life forms? Because some of the stories, and I'm not going to go through all of them, of course, but some of them have really weird happenstances. That's not just, oh, I saw a UFO. Other weird things. Every story is different anyway. What does that mean exactly? My own research is that I I am trying to figure out, because I believe that people who experience high strangeness, they don't just experience it one time, they experience it over and over again throughout the course of their life. And I don't know if it's because it's something that we are born with already, or if it's something that is kind of bestowed on us at some point. And then if it is bestowed on us, how? Um, so this is very significant to my own research and very interesting. Right. So anyway, that is basically the gist of some of these studies that he's found. Um, you know, Dr. Nolan is really interested in the phenomena. He wants to dig deeper, and it's great because he's probably one of the most credible people in the field. Again, he's a professor of pathology at Stanford University. That's no joke. So anyway, what do you think about all that, Pat?
Wow, there's lots to like about that story.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. I think that I think that the idea that some of these people, some of these experiencers are kind of marked prior to their experience makes sense. I think the idea of an experience as an ongoing rite of passage, that they're going through, and not a one-time thing, that makes sense. A lot of it makes sense. I buy all of it. You're getting no arguments for me on this one.
I mean, so they were looking at it and they were trying to figure out other things, other connections. And actually, one of the things that Dr. Nolan was saying, and this is something that I haven't looked into much yet, and I really want to, but he was saying that some of these scans are looking very, very similar to what they're seeing with the the Havana syndrome. Have you heard about this?
Oh, that's even more. That's even more interesting.
That is,
yeah, really Havana syndrome. I think that either I wanted to bring that up, or maybe we just never got around to it. Yeah, so Havana syndrome is something that was first experienced in Havana, but recently there was like Norway or Sweden or something. There was a big case of it. Basically, it's microwave attack technology or something, where they're making people nauseous and fucking with their heads. And when it happened to some dignitaries that were in Havana at the time, correct?
Okay, I don't know.
And yeah. So what it was, we had like, an embassy down in Cuba. Like everybody in the embassy got sick, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And it was basically, it was labeled Havana syndrome, and they figured out that it was deduced from some foreign enemy was using like microwave weapons against our like embassy to fuck with the people inside, right? Like non-lethal deterrence.
Okay.
And it's popped up a couple other times recently. That's something really worth a Google, because and I'm saying within the past 6 months, there was another case of it, like where they thought the Russians were involved in like Norway or something.
Oh, it's been talked about in the last couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real cool, timely hot button thing. But that's interesting to see that they would correlate that with the UAP stuff, because I just assumed that I don't know for sure what Havana syndrome is, but I didn't make any direct correlation. I thought one was just like non-lethal weaponry and the other one was, fucking aliens. But
and I think people have been dying from Havana syndrome is what's been going on. And I think that that's the big mystery, is that they don't really exactly know how it works. They just know that it's like energy that is like permeating the brain, I guess. And,
wow.
And so that's kind of what Dr. Nolan is saying with these scans, and what's happening is that, like, what he would assume, and he really tries to stay very neutral, which is good because it is an ongoing study. What he would assume is that these people were exposed to very, very high levels of energy, and that's how this happened. Because this isn't really something that, even though you have the overconnection of the neurons, you'll see that in some people. And as I mentioned before, it does control intuition. We know that. And the example that he uses, I think, is really great. He explains it as people typically have these overconnections when, like, if you look at like chess players, like these competitive chess players really end up having that overconnection. And that's kind of how they're able to plan out their moves better and be really good at chess, is just because they just kind of know what to do. And there's been other studies done on intuition and what it does anyway. But what he's saying is that this kind of overconnection, because not everybody has it, some people might have it, you know, one time as much as the normal people, which means that they have it present at all. These people have it 5 to 10 times more than the average brain, which is a lot. And like he says, are people that realistically shouldn't be alive. He does mention how a lot of these people have died, and they think that that's connected somehow, but doesn't really go into how or what. Because, I mean, you know, chances are these people are going to die, because, like, everybody dies eventually. But, you know.
Yeah, but you don't want to have a correlation between UAP sightings and deaths, because then it gets more
Right. Well, and correlation isn't
ominous.
causation. And so, you know,
Right.
and we know that. So that's why he didn't really go into it too much. But yeah, he said that it looks very similar to Havana syndrome. Maybe we'll talk about that one day, because I don't know too much about Havana syndrome anyway. I would like to learn more about it, because it just seems really fucking strange. It seems really topical because it's been happening lately. And our military seems very kind of concerned about it. But he did say that as of right now, he's kind of been closed out of the project a little bit because of the recent bouts with Havana syndrome. Everything's kind of on lock and key, so he's just kind of waiting. Not that he won't get back into it eventually, but they don't even trust him at this moment, even though he won't say who from the CIA has even contacted him to work on this to begin with. But I don't believe that the guy's just making up a story. I really don't. I think he would have a lot to lose if he did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy is actually studying the MRIs of these people, and this has been happening. So, you know, whatever. And it's not like this is just happening to a majority of them. This is happening to all of them. So,
Right.
you know, we'll see what comes of that. But very interesting to kind of stick around, especially with which I didn't put down in the news, but, you know, I know that there's been some talk that the military is discussing giving funding for reverse engineering of materials found from alleged UAPs and things like that. So that's another very interesting. I don't think it's been approved yet, but I think they are trying to get some budgeting for that. We already know that they're opening up. You know, they've got now public groups that we know that are studying UAPs. Will they get into reverse engineering of items? Maybe. And if they do, will they then just come out and say, look, we've got the Roswell wreckage? I hope they
Right.
do.
That's a big admittal.
That
You know
would
what I
be a
mean?
big
To say
admittal.
that we have this shit. We have things to reverse engineer in the first place.
Right. So, I mean, well, you know, we'll see what comes of it. And that's why I didn't put it on here, because I didn't feel like, well, I'll be honest, I didn't feel like reading all of it yet. So,
Oh,
but
I hear you.
I'll just wait till it gets approved, then I'll read it. But that's kind of coming up. But anyway, that's all I really had for this week's news. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up real quick. So obviously I'm here. I have survived. Someone that did not survive this week, however, is Anne Rice. And I don't know, were you ever a big Anne Rice fan?
Oh
Interview with a
yeah,
Vampire?
absolutely. I've actually, yeah, I've read the books. Mm-hmm.
I didn't. So I read the Vampire Lestat, and then my first girlfriend in high school asked me to get her uh one of the Sleeping Beauty books for Christmas the year that we were dating. And I got her that. A lot of people don't know Anne Rice was a very prolific erotica writer.
Oh yeah.
And are you familiar with the Sleeping Beauty books?
I've never read them, but I'm aware.
They are
Sexy?
I mean, no, like
No.
honestly, they broke. It was so funny because I hadn't thought about these books in forever. Um, but what I was exposed to and what I took for commonplace at that age, I was probably 15, 16 years old reading those things. And they're fucking crazy, bro. There's like pony play in them,
Oh.
and like it's a lot of human trafficking. It's like it's this whole um all of like the young like princes and princesses when they reach puberty are basically sent to this kingdom where they're like groomed and basically abused and like kind of trained to be spouses and stuff. And it's a lot of BDSM, it's a lot of non-consent, it's a lot of forced buy, it's a lot of all kinds of
I
shit.
feel like we talked about it before. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just.
I might have brought them up before because they're really fucking crazy and out there, and that's what I'll remember Anne Rice from. So I didn't read all of the vampire books, but I read all the Sleeping Beauty books, and man, they broke my little head. So R.I.P. Anne Rice.
Yeah, I mean, very sad. I mean, we don't like to see the people that help shape us, pass away. It's always very sad. Um, but I mean, God, she was 80. You know what I mean?
She had a
Like,
good run. Yeah, I'm not. I don't.
And
Yeah.
but she had a very interesting, she had a very interesting life in general. I mean, just her struggle with religion and spirituality.
Yeah.
Aside from just obviously, these books, her vampire chronicles that were, very, very influential. I mean, definitely dig into her life in general and how she struggled with that and kind of overcame it. I believe eventually she did end up passing away. Maybe she wasn't religious at the time. I think she was spiritual, but she definitely denounced Christianity after she had become a hardcore Christian and then ended up denouncing it. But just her life in general, very inspirational. And I hope that they share that more. I feel like that doesn't get talked about more. Which I understand. I mean, artists make things and people talk about our art and I get that, but like, I always find it very inspiring listening to how that art came to be and whatnot. But no, Anne Rice was a big one for me growing up. I really enjoyed her, vampires and the little world she made. I almost read all of them, but I hadn't, but maybe now I will. So
yeah.
And then her son is also an author. Have you read anything by him?
No.
Me neither.
No. But listeners of the show, check out the Sleeping Beauty books. And if you've checked out the Sleeping Beauty books, feel free to give us a call at 773-59-WEIRD and read us your favorite passage from one of them.
Please, yes. Oh, I can already think of I think I know somebody who actually will do.
You just remember they used to like impale people on statues, not like kill them, impale them, but like the statues would have erections, and then they would like make the people sit on the statues overnight, and then they like put honey on them so that flies would be. It was really like crazy BDSM shit, like really fucking nuts.
How is that BDSM if it's not supposed to? Is that sexual? Is it supposed to be sexual?
Well, because it was all about training people to be submissive, and you would have to break their spirits, and that's why like girls would be made to like live like ponies for fucking a month and have like the bridle on and everything and like be forced into like it was a lot of pony play and a lot of like just really crazy, like not just like Danielle Steele, Joan Collins, Jackie Collins, like smut. This was like next level shit, you know what I mean? But I invite the listeners to check it out and then read us your favorite passage. You don't even have to buy the books. I'm sure you can just Google it and then call 773-59-WEIRD.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go put in your favorite passage. Read it to
right.
us. We will absolutely play it on the show. Um, because, why not?
Yeah.
Wow, that's no, I maybe I will read these. I don't know. I'm not a big fiction fan, but not anymore anyway. Um, and that's okay. But wow, I didn't realize that was taking place in Anne Rice novels. Hmm.
Yeah. Let me know when Small Town Monsters makes that fucking movie.
As long as they don't film it in Chicago, huh?
Oh.
or at least invite you to it. That's
Right.
I'll keep you posted. Guys, get on it. Make some Anne Rice smut. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, reading her her vampire series, I mean, it's that makes sense. Even though she didn't, I feel like those weren't too bad really at all. Um,
I think they were just gay, and that was
Super gay.
yeah. But at the time, that was
A problem for
that
people.
ended up yeah. Well, it wasn't for me, but that's what I remember. Like when I was going through her bibliography and remember reading like a vampireless stat in 8th grade and being like, man, I was kind of young to be exposed to this, and it didn't. I didn't flinch. Like I don't think it really bothered me that. Not that it would have, but I think that she definitely, should have uh gotten kudos for making the queer a little commonplace in Supernatural. I'm not saying she married the two, but when you think of the Homo vampire, it's got shades of Anne Rice in it.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. No, I would agree with that. No, I think she was a big force for that. Actually, I think that was a big thing, but not even just that. I mean, just I'm not gonna say sexuality in general, but I think sex in general. Because they had a lot of, I mean, those vampires, like they have they're gay, but they're not all gay. I mean, they're definitely curious. They've got open relationships. A lot of the kind of polyamory, pansexual feel to the whole situation. So, it's no wonder that people like myself or Pat yourself or probably you guys read these books. So,
Right.
and didn't feel like it was weird at all.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm here for this. So very, very interesting. But then shit would get weird because then she had like, Claudia was forever a 4-year-old child. Even though in the movie she's who is that? Oh my god.
Kristen Dunst, one of
Yeah.
her first roles. Yeah.
Yeah, is the girl, and she's not quite 4. I think she's like 9, but in the book she's 4. And I think
Yeah, that's a terrible age to be stuck at.
and she's got romantic relationships, and it's like, okay, this is fucking not, this is weird. Like,
Right.
I
Yeah,
was having a
yeah.
good time, but I'm not anymore. So, but whatever. But still, anyway, rest in peace, Anne Rice. I'm sure you're busy, still trying to figure out your spirituality. I don't know what happens when you die. I hope it's good.
I have no insight. I was hoping to come back having glimpsed the other side of the veil, and
Nothing.
I got nothing.
That's what
I got nothing.
That's what I hear, and I think that's probably more terrifying than any hell or anything. That sucks. It's very sad. But we'll see. But then again, you didn't die, so that's good. Also,
This is true. I did not.
you did not die. They kept you alive, so you were there. So I don't know, but anyway, did you have more to add before I jump into the pre-recorded Dogman situation?
No, let's do it. I need to roll myself so I don't get bed sores.
That's such an old people thing. All right. It's okay. All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into it. This is the Dogman Revisited episode. So, one of our first episodes together, not necessarily the podcast, but, one of the, what is it, the dog days of Dr. X and Asher's was about Dogman. And right. I was kind of new to the concepts of this thing back then, and I'm sure you were probably very new. But I don't know, maybe you knew about Dogman. I mean, you did make Space Werewolf at that point in time. So
yeah, I was not. I was totally not familiar with the Dogman thing. I thought that it was just like werewolves or something. I didn't realize that it was kind of its own mythos.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really either. I mean, I know I had heard of it, dating back, probably at least over 10 years. I had known that, because we have a local one. It's called the Beast of Butter Street. And, it's in an area where I've been, and I think I've talked about this to death because we used to just get high and spend every single night driving around this area. And then I found out that there was supposedly a Dogman down there, and I was like, what? I've never seen one. But and so we had like kind of our Dogman episode, which we just kind of talked about, like the Defiance Dogman. I think we might have talked about the Beast of Bray Road a little bit. Just the typical Dogman. And the Defiance, Ohio one, that one, had a weapon. So that was really weird. But,
what kind of weapon did it have?
I don't remember. I think it had like a crowbar or something. I don't remember exactly what it had. But it had some type of weapon, and was going around terrorizing people. It wasn't like, it was mainly one guy who had this report, and this was back in the 70s. Of being attacked by this Dogman creature with a weapon. But then other people had reported seeing it too. But I think we just kind of chalked it up to maybe some guy wearing furs, or, I really don't honestly remember. I probably should have listened to that episode. I just remember thinking very heavily that it was probably bullshit. And, since then we have had two people on the show to talk about their Dogman stories. We had Ryan Tremblay come on and talk about his. Sure. And then we had Roy Stubblefield talk about his.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And Ryan's story was, I'll be honest with you, it was one of the first ones that I had heard that I thought might have had some credibility to it. It was one of the first ones that I had a personal experience with hearing firsthand. And, so I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. And Ryan's really big into the Dogman research. So, of course, that, I was interested in him. So, therefore, I got interested in Dogman. And, I started digging a little bit more. Ryan introduced me to Roy. And Roy's story, I feel like, is kind of what made me a believer, because it's just wild. And if you guys haven't heard that episode, definitely go listen to the Roy Stubblefield, Dogman werewolf. Well, Roy thinks it was a werewolf. But regardless of whether it was a werewolf or a Dogman or whatever, God, that story's crazy. Do you remember hearing that one? What did you think about that one?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes that we did, because I thought he was very believable, and he kind of, his story is what it is, but what really sold me was the trauma that he associated with
aftermath.
Yeah, and I think that was that's something that we've talked about a lot on this show, but that was I feel like that's when it first kind of entered in the conversation, the idea that, if these experiences are real and they are to be believed, then it is logical, and what we know about human beings and how they respond to crazy shit is that there's going to be an element of trauma and PTSD after people have these experiences, because they shake your belief in the foundation of reality so fucking hard.
Oh, yeah.
That, if you get, especially in Roy's case, where he was in a life or death situation, he was in a combat situation with this creature.
Oh, yeah.
Where, him and his friends could have been killed, and that would be enough to kind of fuck with anyone's noggin. But to have it be a creature like this that is out so far outside the norm, no, he handled that pretty much the way that I think that somebody would, and regardless of the details of his story and what I think they suggest, or what I think that creature was, if it was a werewolf or if it was a Dogman or if it was a fucking shapeshifter,
just a big dog,
skinwalker or whatever. I believe that incident happened. I don't necessarily have an explanation for it, but I 100% believe Roy's story.
Yeah, I do too, and I keep saying that. I mean, Roy himself, the guy isn't, it's not like this man was a storyteller prior to this. You know what I mean? It's not like he was, he does this. It's not like he's got all these fantastical stories. I mean, he does. I think he did try to do a show at some point or something, but of course, I think that just comes with the territory of kind of getting into this kind of thing. and it's just, being able to relate to each other. But it just didn't fit for this person to have this experience, or I'm sorry, for this person to lie about having this experience, and then not to mention the trauma, because I have, I've talked to Roy separately, and like, I know that, at one point in time, somebody had reported, and I think I mentioned this in the show, or maybe the week after or something, but somebody had reported a dog man in his area, and it kicked off that trauma again. He wasn't leaving at night. He was barricading himself in the house. He was drinking again. I mean, so it's, whatever it was very, very real to him. But another event had happened because, again, the Dogman community, and yes, there is a Dogman community, and some of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. There are entire shows with, thousands and thousands, I mean, tens of thousands of subscribers to these shows that only talk about Dogman and only talk about people encountering Dogmen. You've got groups like the North American Dogman Project, which is ran by Jody Cook and Nick Valente, and these people, go to conferences, and they just do Dogman. I mean, it's a big community, and sometimes this community, I'll be fucking dead honest with you, is extremely toxic. And that's weird. I stay away from that part of it. So then it's hard. I think that really hurts the credibility when you have people that want to believe in this thing, and then they go to reach out to the community, and then they get into the community, and there's like people. I just saw a video the other day of some animal with mange, and somebody's like, "Oh, it's a dog man," but it's not. It's like a raccoon or something with mange.
Do you think they're more toxic than any other kind of like nerdy subculture?
Yeah.
Like, are they worse than gamers and squatchers?
Oh, they're definitely worse than squatchers. Gamers,
Really?
I don't know. If you're talking about like super incel gamers, like, no, those guys are pretty fucking awful. But like, yes, the Dogman community is pretty bad. It definitely keeps me away from all of that, and that sucks. And I'm not saying every single person is a bad person in that community. Like, I don't want anybody here to think that that's what I'm not saying that. But there's lots of drama. There's lots of infighting. Yeah,
that's so bizarre to me.
Drama in the Dogman community.
What do you think the correlation is? What do you think it is about that cryptid that draws negative people, or do you think that that's just kind of what the culture has been? So people that get drawn to this cryptid get drawn into that community and get drawn into that kind of culture, and it just needs a reboot? Or do you think there's something inherent about that type of creature that attracts a certain type of people that behave a certain type of way?
I think, here's what I think, because a dogman, and I'll still say this to this day, biologically, dogmen don't make sense. On an evolutionary scale, it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
It doesn't make, it makes sense for us to have very large dogs, and a lot of dogmen are not just reported being, bipedal, but most of the time they can do both. And actually, a lot of people describe, Ryan Tremblay described it in his encounter, and a lot of other people describe in their encounters that, like, this thing will start off on all fours or crouching down, and then when it stands up, there's like very noticeable popping and crackling. So it's kind of like they have joints that can morph and make it so that they can do either or, which isn't something that, and I mean, I'm not familiar with every single animal on the entire planet, but I don't think there's any creature that does that with its legs and arms and legs. I don't know. I mean, I know, like, snakes can unhinge their jaw. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's totally impossible for them to kind of shift their shit around if they need to, but like nothing on that scale. So they can do both. But why would you be bipedal anyway? Some of them have hands, some of them have paws. If they had hands, then no, it's not very beneficial for them to then walk and run on those hands. We know that because we see gorillas and how they walk on their fists, their knuckles. And, they don't walk on their hands, and so, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense on an evolutionary scale. And there's nothing that really leads to that. But you have instances where, these things are not really, they don't really make sense terrestrially because people see them and they kind of are in and out of reality. One encounter, which is tied to Josh Turner's encounter. Josh Turner himself did not say that he saw this, but the person he was with who saw the Dogman with him said, and they saw like a big black dog, basically like a German Shepherd type dog on two legs. The guy that was with him swears that he saw a black mist coming off of it. And, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Nothing is just misty, no animal is. So, I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, back to the community. I think that the reason why there's so much infighting in this community is because they started off already the black sheep of the black sheep. And, I think even people like Squatchers have a hard time buying the concept of Dogman. And I think that because of that, it created a lot of hostility just within these people. And then as the idea of Dogman is becoming accepted, they don't really know what to do with all that hate that they've had built up over the years. And then, of course, when you get into talking about Dogman, it is a very popular subject. And so you have people that are just trying to cash in on it, so you got people with ego that are playing a part in this. You don't have a lot of people that are seriously studying it scientifically. Bigfoot, everybody's like, okay, I could buy into Bigfoot. Bigfoot's paid its dues. You know what I mean? To kind of have that everyday average Joe be able to believe in it. But when you start talking about Dogman to the average person, they're like, what? The what? The dog, huh?
Oh, you mean like werewolves?
Werewolves, right? Like werewolves, and so I think that that's kind of where this all started, but I don't know why it continues. I can tell you, like, we got plenty of blob squatches out there. We got plenty of Bigfoot, like, oh, look at this thing that's, hundreds of yards away that's kind of walking in the woods. That's probably Bigfoot. Or, look at this blurry picture of Bigfoot or whatever. But we have things like the Patterson Gimlin film and the Independence Day footage and the Freeman footage. I mean, we do have close-up shots of this thing. With Dogman, it's not really like that. I'll tell you something. What's very, very popular. What's popular in these cryptid groups anyway, it is popular, but it's extra popular in the Dogman community is that people will show you a picture and go, oh, look, there it is. Can you see what I see? And it'll be like on Facebook or something. And then like 10 people will comment and they'll be like, oh, there's 4 of them. I can see 4 of them. Meanwhile, it's a fucking picture of trees, like, and leaves. Like, there's not anything in it. It's blurry. Yeah. And so it's a stump that looks like it could potentially kind of maybe be some type of shape. I don't know. And then everybody goes, oh my God, I see it. But this happens a lot with Dogman.
Well, here's the thing, Ashers. It's the only thing that's going to happen. You're
Why?
not going to, because you're talking about a fucking Dogman. Like nobody is going to show up on a Facebook group with like a GoPro interview with a Dogman.
Well,
the only footage they're going to come up with is blurry 100-yard out fucking pictures of something that could be anything. Because look at, I guess you got to look at this, like you're drawing an electrical diagram. Like, okay, so, if this thing is real, if this phenomenon is real, okay, then you said it yourself, it's not biological. Right. It doesn't fit the evolutionary model as we know it. Okay.
And I'd agree. I mean, right now where I stand, which is kind of why we're revisiting, I still agree with that. Yes.
So, we are not going to say definitively on this program, on this episode, what the Dogman is and what the origin story is. But we can cross off a few things that we're pretty sure that it's not. Right. And one of them is that it's a byproduct of evolution. Okay. That means that it's got to be some supernatural entity. All right. Whether or not that means that it's or paranormal or Fortean entity, right? Whether or not that means that it's some kind of alien species, or it is a werewolf, it's somebody that transforms, it's a skinwalker, it's a ghost or some shit, it's a fucking demon or a hellhound or whatever, I don't know. But we're admitting that there's like supernatural chicanery involved.
Yeah,
all right,
there's some type of element there. Yeah.
at which point we're crossing into a realm that we know absolutely fucking nothing about, that science is going to fail us. Okay, that this is something that we could barely conceptualize because it is way beyond us. All right, or it's not real. Right, so that's
Sure.
the point where we're at right now, is that this phenomenon is not real. It's a whole big misunderstanding. It's a bunch of misinterpreted pictures or people that are straight up fucking lying or crazy, or that this phenomenon is real, but it's happening on a supernatural scale, the likes of which the average human cannot comprehend, unless we do a real deep dive into magic and Native American mythology or whatever. Okay, which none of us have done.
Well, and I think that's why we have so many people. Yeah, I think that's why we have so many people like Linda Godfrey, who like that's all she writes about is Dogman. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have these people that's what they do. That's their thing, Dogman.
Well, that's the reason why they can do it, is because they're so you reach this. Maybe the reason that this phenomenon is picking up so much steam right now is that narratively it's in that sweet spot where nothing can be proven or disproven.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of proof, and a lot of the proof is kind of suspect. So it's like you can come up with whatever fucking explanation you want, because the likelihood of someone finding something tomorrow that completely disproves whatever book you're selling today is next to nil. It's not going to happen. So it's a bunch of people just kind of pulling theories out of their ass, and whoever can tell the best story sells the most books, gets the most YouTube views, whatever.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of what this shit is all over the place. I think that's a lot of what this paranormal community is like.
Oh, well, and there's definitely a lot of toxic people within it. I mean, that's, for sure. I'm not questioning the validity of that at all.
Well, not necessarily even toxic as in like these people are like evil and corrupt and they're trying to exploit anything else. I think there's a lot of storytellers. I think there's a lot of creative people with creative minds. But what there isn't a lot is actual hard scientific evidence about any of this shit, because if there was, then this would be in a completely different realm. Right. You know what I mean? Unless then you move into the thought process that says that there is a lot of evidence about all this shit, that it is being suppressed for one reason or another. And if we want to go down that path and talk about the different reasons that the scientific community could be suppressing evidence of dogmen, Sasquatch, Loch Ness monsters, whatever, right? Because one could make that argument. I mean, it'd be a hard one to back up and prove definitively, but we've heard those arguments before.
So with the Dogman stuff, okay, this has been something that I have been actively, so some of these things, right? Mothman, I am actively trying to prove to people or show people that it exists, that there's something going on here, okay? And that's where my mindset is. Dogman is something that I am actively trying to prove to people doesn't exist. And so it has been, and you know what? It's interesting because this is the first time with me doing this where I've had this contrast. And I know a lot of you are big Dogman stans, and I know that statement just set you off. Hear me out. Listen to this before you go off and you hate me and you cancel me on the internet. So I had set out to prove that this wasn't a thing. Okay. And so something big had happened, and I'm kind of not really paying any attention to Dogman. I mean, it's kind of starting to come up on my radar. That's another thing about the way I research. I don't choose these topics. They come to me. I don't pick and choose what it is. I'm not like, oh, I really like that cryptid, I'm going to research it. It doesn't work that way. In this world of odd synchronicity, it comes to you. And so Dogman was very much like that. So while I'm kind of studying this, and really, honestly, the first time I'd ever heard anything about this was from Ryan Shirley when he was on the show. He was talking about this land between the lakes thing. And I had no fucking clue what he was talking about. He was talking about how people thought it was a Bigfoot at first, and now they think that, it's Dogman. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know. I had no fucking idea what he was talking about. So if, like me, you had no idea what the land between the lakes thing was, I'll tell you, school you a little bit. Back in the 1980s, Don't know exactly when in the 1980s, but the 1980s in general. A family went to the land between the lakes. The land between the lakes is a spot that crosses the state line between, it's right where Kentucky and Tennessee meet up. It's a huge, huge, huge nature reserve. Okay. So in the 1980s, a family went out there, and allegedly a family was completely slaughtered by this weird creature. And people say that it's Dogman. How do they know that it's Dogman? Well, there had been some rumors. There were rumors like some of the police officers knew, just because of some of the details of the situation, and that they knew that there's Dogman out there. There's rumors that there was a survivor, things like that. And this had started because this anecdote had appeared in somebody's book back in like the early 2000s. And, that's where this kind of originated from. So, but then again, it's just like, oh, somebody in that book, the author was like, well, somebody told me the story of this, and this is their story. And it's like, well,
Right.
who's that somebody? Where did that come from? Where's that person? So to me, I'm like, well, this is obviously bullshit. Like, okay, so you have a big nature reserve, right? There's obviously wild fucking animals out there. Like, why would there be a big cover up of this family, right? So there has to be some proof that there was a family killed there. That's not a far stretch. And I think we've kind of talked about it before. I know I talk about it a lot. When you go out into the woods, you risk your life. The woods are fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
And, that's just the way it is. Bigfoot and Dogman aside, like, the woods are fucking dangerous. And so, they could have pinned this on anything. They could have pinned it on any animal. They could have said it was a serial killer, anything. They could have said it was anything. Why would they cover it up so completely that you can't even find a news article or anything about it anywhere except for this book? So I ended up going through almost every single local publication that I could find in the 1980s, from 1980 to 1981 to 1982. I did not find anything like this. Okay. So some people maintain that the reason why you can't find anything about this is because, again, the government covered it up. But why would they do that? What would be the motivation? So I've continuously over and over and over again tried to find proof that this thing happened, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not finding it anywhere. So to me, I'm like, okay, this is just a fairy tale. This is just a story that people talk about. And then something had happened. And this man, he goes by simply Roger, came forward and said that he knows that the land between the lakes story is real because he was the surviving witness to it. He says that he was 15 years old at the time. He was living, he ended up moving in with this Amish family, and they had fled the Amish community, and they were living in an RV. And, one of the places that they ended up at was the LBL, Land Between the Lakes. And that, he was there, and he saw not just one Dogman, but there were two that came and attacked this family. And that he basically ended up escaping because he hid underneath the RV until they were gone. He said that the dad of the family, it was like a dad, a mom, and I think two kids, and then plus him, a very little girl and like a teenage boy or something, I think. But anyway, so, he said that the dad of the family, tried to shoot at these things. Nothing happened. It just pissed them off even more. And anyway, he survived. And, the cops eventually showed up. They picked him up and they took him back to a house. And somebody that he just assumed at the time, because he was a 15-year-old kid, was maybe a detective or something, living in an Amish community. He was a detective or something, showed up, but he doesn't really know. Could have been a Men in Black. I don't really know. But this fantastical fucking story. And I'm like, okay, all right, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. Obviously, this LBL story is fake. And this guy's fucking fake, and he's coming in to cash in on this. I'm fucking done. with this. So, I've continued my research. I still don't find anything. I've had other very strange, anomalous thing happen with the LBL. And eventually I will talk about that. Spoiler alert, we're doing a documentary on it, but you'll find out one day. But I had weird things happening while I'm digging into this research, and it was, but still, I thought that Roger's story was bullshit. This guy's story was bullshit. So Roger's story blows up. Like, I mean, this thing, he originally was on this podcast called Cryptid Studies Institute, and it was just a teeny tiny show that nobody fucking knew about, and it went viral because of this guy, because people are so interested in the story, because they just felt like, well, this was it, this was the smoking gun, we know that it happened because there's a witness coming forward. Roger ended up getting a TV deal, and he was supposed to be doing this show or documentary or docuseries or whatever. But meanwhile, he is getting flack from the NADP, the North American Dogman Project. Specifically, he's getting flack from Jody Cook, who Jody is saying that, Jody lives kind of local. I'm only 2 hours away from the LBL, and I think Jody is in Cincinnati, Ohio, so he's even closer. So, I mean, I believe he's been there. I would think he's been there to investigate, if that's what he does. But anyway, they went on like this live stream one day with, with Josh Turner, actually, from Paranormal Roundtable, and they were all on there. I think it's still up. And Jody is like tearing into this man. Like, he's picking apart every single piece of his story, which, I'll be honest with you, he was being an asshole about. Jody Cook's kind of an asshole, but you kind of get used to it. But I was kind of excited that Jody was doing this. He was asking the hard questions, because a lot of the shit the guy was saying didn't make any sense. And then it was just kind of a weird war. Well, then like a couple of weeks had gone by, and Jody Cook comes out criticizing Roger, because he's saying that Roger, the TV deal fell through because Roger refused to take a lie detector test. And, other things. So then, that was obviously a sign of bullshit in the story. And I'm like, okay, all right, this guy's just going to go. He's going to go on with, somewhere. So fast forward. Okay. Again, I've, had other weird stuff happen surrounding this particular area. I'll talk about it eventually. But fast forward to actually, CryptidCon. Okay. So CryptidCon, And I didn't anticipate this. We were going to record this episode before CryptidCon. But CryptidCon, I go there and I meet Jesse and Joe from Hellbent Holler. They have a YouTube channel. And they're the real deal. Like, they're legit. They go out there, and they do, they do the damn thing. But they have been to the LBL, and we had not had a chance to go out there yet. But they've actually been there. When I kind of started getting into the research, everybody kept telling me to talk to them about it. But they had been there. They've done a video on it, whatever. And so, we're talking, and I'm talking to them, and Joe is like, Joe informs me. He said, well, I know about the Roger thing because it was me and Jesse that were also supposed to be a part of this TV program. We were all working together, and we were all supposed to do it. He said that Roger actually kind of went nuts. He said, and what happened was, like, he called the producers and said, you guys are going to give me $10,000 within 24 hours or I'm not going to do this. And they were like, oh, well, go fuck yourself for national television. You work on our time, and so then, that kind of created this falling out. I don't know about the lie detector test part. I guess I'll ask them about it now that we've become really good friends. But other things had happened. Joe had said that the LBL massacre site it wasn't lost, but like, locals know where it is. And so, they had gone up there. He said, actually, the people you want to talk to are these geocaching people, which I don't know if you know about geocaching or not, but it's like you hide stuff in different areas around the world. And then like, there's an app or something, and like, you get these coordinates and you go look for whatever it is. It's fun. But he says the geocaching people know where this massacre site is. And so he had found the exact coordinates of the massacre site through some forum many, many years ago. And they went and they go there. And he said that I can tell you, every single detail that Roger described about this place is in fact exactly what it is. He described it perfectly. So it's like, okay. Now, could this guy just be a big Dogman enthusiast and he also happened to find the coordinates of the massacre site and he went out there? Maybe he's the one that years ago, put the coordinates out there and said, this is where it happened. I mean, could there be some kind of conspiracy there? Sure. But it definitely threw me through a loop, when I have this person sitting here telling me that, he knows the area at minimum. And it's not like it's in a weird area. So that's another thing. They're describing to me the LBL. And the LBL is 42 miles of fucking nature. And that's big. Like, that's a big place. And, so if something is going to live anywhere, it would make sense to live there. Not just that, the Native Americans, of course, have heavy lore of a dog-type creature in that area specifically. Land Between the Lakes is a Native American name. I mean, that's still very much, their land. Nobody lives there, but that's still very much their land. They have stories of this canine thing walking around, and then also you have, according to Jesse and Joe, there's like weird areas where I'm name dropping a lot in this episode. I'm sorry. Give you guys plenty of stuff to watch and listen to. But they're like talking about these weird areas where like it was obviously inhabited. They said there's abandoned buildings out there, but then they, tear them down. There's like random pieces of road that have been torn off of other pieces. Like they kind of don't want you to go to these places. The massacre site itself is completely overgrown. You can't really get there. Not that the national park is going, hey, this is a tourist attraction. Let's clear this area so people can come to the massacre site. So that's probably all just could be coincidence, could be not. But then they start telling me about so they have this thermal camera and they take it out there to the LBL and it's nighttime and they are telling me a tale of how they just felt very strangely. They look over in kind of this ditch area and they see something that's kind of peeking out but couldn't quite make out what it was. So they shot it with the thermal camera and there's definitely something and it's definitely set apart from, the foliage and the trees and, things like that because again, it's thermal. You can see there's a different shape to it. And in this shape, which I don't think that they've publicly shared this, but I can just tell you that I saw it. I hope they do if they haven't already. But in this shape, you can very much see a head cut out where there's big, pointy ears, really big, pointy ears. So then Joe's like, so we have this thermal shot, he said, and then in the meantime, he said, I was talking to Barton Nunley, who Barton Nunley is also in the LBL a lot. He's another one of those guys that's down there. He said, I was talking to Barton Nunley, and Barton sends me the sketch. There's an eyewitness sketch of allegedly what the LBL beast, looked like. And it has these very distinct, very massive, big, pointy ears. And not just that, somebody had taken a supposed picture. And I'll tell you, this picture, I would have looked at, and I would have just said, that's bullshit, that's just trees. Except, what do you see in this picture? These very distinct, very high pointed ears. So, I've definitely been rocked a little bit because, like I said, I've been trying to prove that this thing is not real. And I can't do that. And I thought that would be easy. And it's not. So, I don't know. I don't know. The jury is kind of still out for me in this Dogman situation. I mean, the more and more I dig into it, the more research that I do, the more it looks like there could really potentially be something to this. And, not to mention when you think about like werewolf lore, because there is werewolf lore. I don't think people ever transformed into wolves. I think that what it was, Joe Blow would leave the village, and then while Joe Blow is gone, a fucking Dogman comes into the village and terrorizes people. Then it leaves. Joe Blow comes back. He missed the whole thing, so they all assumed it was him. And then plus you had other things like lycanthropy, which has like illness and things associated with it, which we've talked about kind of with the Wendigo, and I'm sure we'll talk about more eventually. Is that sometimes these things can be associated with supernatural events, and they're not. We could explain them. Joe Blow was just really fucking sick and had diarrhea. I don't know.
Right.
And they're just like, oh well, we saw Dogman, Joe Blow left. I mean, it's just kind of circumstantial evidence, and they just assume that that's you're transforming into this thing when you leave. And other tales. I mean, you got tales of like, the Egyptians have Anubis, and this isn't something that is as simple as, oh, the Wolfman movie came out and now people think it's a thing. Like, no. This has been going on for a long time everywhere. And I don't know. I don't know. So I've definitely had my own thoughts on this situation be different, and it's kind of why I really wanted to revisit it. I mean, wanted to tell people what I've seen and what I found out, and what I've learned since then. And I know that when people come to the show, especially because I do have friends in this weird Dogman community that I've talked about, and I know when you guys come over to the show and you hear that original Dogman episode, it's probably very disappointing because it was kind of all chalked up to bullshit. But that's sometimes you gotta prove or not. Sometimes you gotta be honest with yourself and say that, hey, maybe I was wrong, and I might have been wrong. I'm still trying to prove that this thing doesn't exist. And I'll let you know if I do. I mean, I think it's harder to disprove something than it is to prove something. But it's definitely, at minimum, been a very interesting, case study for myself and how I research things. But I can't completely write it off. So I don't know.
Wow. So that's
a lot. I know.
Yeah, it's kind of a 180 too, because
it is.
So I guess like everything we have now just hinges upon this land between the lakes. That's the most compelling evidence so far. But even that's just people's. It's one guy's account, and
it is.
There's no physical evidence.
Well, no, the thermal image.
Well, yeah, the picture. Evidence. That's right. There's the picture of that they took of something looking at him in the woods.
But it's still very, I mean, it's not, hardcore. This is it for sure. But like, and Joe will tell you that. Joe will tell you, I can't say that that's a Dogman for sure, but it's something.
Well, I mean, and to go back to what we talked about earlier, then, we think that this is a byproduct of something. You have to go back to the Native American lore, and whatever explanation they have is probably what this is all going to land on. And do we know what they think is out there in that area?
Well, something supernatural.
Yeah.
I mean, they think it's, like I said, to them, it's a supernatural. I don't think they've ever described it as being a, like an actual animal. For them, it's some type of spirit that's out there, but it's a canine type spirit, so, I mean, I think you're right. That's probably the closest we've gotten. I mean, if anybody knows the land, it's them. We are going, we're actually going to go with Jesse and Joe, and we're going to go out there, and we're probably going to go out there a couple of times because again, it's 42 miles. It's a big area.
Right.
You got the Kentucky side and the Tennessee side and each side between, between the lakes. But we're going to go out there with them and, go to the massacre sites and, hang with them and do our thing. So we'll see what happens, when that happens. But, yeah, I mean, I'm a little intimidated, and I'm not always, intimidated by these areas of high strangeness, but it's been a very interesting journey to say the least, because again, I have walked into this as a complete skeptic, and I'm walking out a believer. So
hopefully you walk out, you don't get
hopefully
eaten. Jesus Christ.
Eaten by the Dogman is very true. Well, that's very true, because let's be honest, if it's a if it's supposed to be a gun-free zone, but it's the fucking woods. Like, you don't go into the woods without weapons.
Yeah.
And but if it's some type of supernatural entity, I don't think a gun's going to stop it. Well, that's what Roger says, that they didn't stop it then. So, I don't know. Now, again, I'm still digging for proof. I'm still trying to find things that correlate to this missing family in the woods, because people do go missing in the LBL a lot. Oddly enough, there was a weird, I'll share this tidbit. but I have to keep something so that I got something to show you guys in a documentary. But when I was looking up missing persons cases, there was an incident where two people were found in the same day, and they did not know each other. They did not go there together, but both of them were from the same city in Oregon. Now, they both went missing at different times, but they were both found the same day. And that's just, I mean, is it just one of those things that's like, oh, that's kind of, that's kind of funny. And I say it all the time. It just depends on if you believe in coincidence or not. And if you don't, then this is weird.
Right. Well, but I mean, if you look at like that instance, so like, okay, if you look at that whole thing, like, did something draw those two people from the same city out there at the same time? Were both of those people's, were their bodies dumped? You know what I mean? Like, what, that is weird. That's a weird coincidence. But to try to make more of it than that, then what are you saying? You know what I mean? Then, then what's the narrative? Then what's really going on?
Right.
Because it's one thing to be able to say, man, that's a really strange coincidence. Okay, fine, I'll give you that. But what does it mean? So what's the alternative?
But there's a lot of those, and it's like, so how can you ignore every single, like, if it was just like a one-off, cool, whatever, I can write that off. But the fact that there's so many of that happening at any given point in time, I'll share this too, and then I'll leave the rest. But when we started researching the LBL, I remember the first time I'd really dug into it, it was between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. And I was talking on the phone with somebody about it. I got curious. I wanted to know how far away it was from me. So I pulled it up on Google Maps. And Google Maps has this graph that tells you if a place, like how busy it is right now. And, throughout the day, it's kind of just, up and down a little bit, nothing astronomical. But right at that very point in time, your bar, at the time that you're looking at it right now, is a pink bar. And this bar was completely full. And I just thought, oh, that's an oversight. It's just Google Maps glitching, whatever. But it was kind of strange. So about a week later, I'm talking about it with Anne, because she's my research partner. And she was like, how far away is this place again? So I'm like, oh, shit, well, let me pull it up on maps. So I do. I pull it up on maps, and it's once again, and it's the same fucking time of night. I'm sorry, no, actually, you know what? It was just after 1 a.m. And so it was just outside of that window, but I pull it up on maps, and even though I'm just outside of 1 a.m., between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m., there's this full fucking bar where this place is allegedly hopping. And I'm like, that's weird. So we start kind of watching this bar. We're looking at it all times a day. I'm having other people look at it, to see what their graph says. And looks into how they get these analytics to begin with. And how they get it is through cell phone towers. That's how Google knows how busy a place is. It pings your cell phone off the towers. And so it's something that's happening kind of, in the air, kind of, an energy like, right? And so that's how they get it. And it's still for some, and it doesn't happen for everybody. It doesn't show that it's hopping between 12 and 1 a.m. for everybody. It doesn't show that all the time, but on select random nights, and we haven't been able to find a pattern for it, it is showing that something's going on. And, and so we're like, well, what's going on? Is this a weird portal time that, and that, I mean, maybe this is really woo woo, and maybe it is, but maybe there's something to it. I mean, is this just a point in time, a little blip in time that shit's weird? And when I talked to Joe and Jesse about this, I didn't mention anything about this. They said after 11 o'clock, there's fucking nobody there. Nobody. It is dead silent. So it's not even like it's just all the campers that are sleeping. It's not that. And even if it was, it would be like that all fucking night. It doesn't make any sense. So there's a lot of this weird little stuff that doesn't really add up. That's, by themselves is easy to write off, but together it becomes harder to do that. It becomes harder to ignore. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. It's an ongoing investigation, just like my whole fucking life. But, I'll let you guys know if anything happens. But where I stand right now today, compared to where I was, what was that, a year ago when we did Dogman? Over a year probably now, is that something's going on. I'll entertain the idea. I'll buy that one for $1. So.
Bringing it on home with a RoboCop quote. Very nice.
What do you think, Pat? Has your mind changed at all on this thing? I know that you err on the side of caution with this kind of stuff.
No, I just am reasonable. I think that like you said before, if we rule out the biological, then it's got to be supernatural. And I think the land between the lakes story keeps in line with that. I think it'd be interesting to see what the Native Americans' explanation is, since obviously this is something that they have experience with. And I think you take it from there. You know, whatever they're suggesting. If it is like a spirit thing, is it some kind of lost tribe that lives in there? Is it, you know, I don't know. You have to see what are they saying? You know what I mean? Is it, did aliens genetically modify humans and wolves, and there's this tribe that lives in there still that are, you know, chimeras or something, you know, and these other sightings that you get in other parts of the country, because you're talking about one specific area, but I mean, they've been spotted all over the place. They've been, I think I saw online 38 out of the 50 states, mostly in the Midwest and area. So like, you know, I think you got to go back. I think, you know, don't worry about blurry photos and stuff like that. I think if you really want to get to the bottom of this, you got to start looking at the tales of the land and what the Native Americans are saying, and there's your explanation.
And I would agree with that. Definitely. You know, I think that the history is definitely pointing to something, and I think that, you know, I feel like physically going to these places and seeing for myself, and I say that a lot when I try to prove or disprove things. If I could at least prove it to myself, I mean, shit, that's all that matters. But if I could prove it to everybody, that'd be great. But you know, I don't know. We'll see. I'm very open to the idea, and I will continue to do that. If you guys want to share your Dogman stories, you can do that at 773-59-WEIRD. So there's that.
Awesome.
But yeah, I think that's all I got to say about it. Pat, anything else you want to add?
Nope, I got nothing.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys here next Wednesday.